All right. Okay, so today is May 17th. It is 11 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, and we've got a lot of cool stuff to go over today. I'm going to give you guys a couple of updates on the stimulus package that actually got voted through the House of Representatives on Friday, so just 2 days ago. We're going to talk about how we're actually not in a recession yet, and there's a lot of things that you guys need to know that I've been studying up on, and that things that I learned when I was heavily involved in the world of business that I'm seeing a repeat of from 2008, 2009, and then how much we should all be saving up, not all of us together, but like you individually, how much we should have saved up by, I'm saying by 2021, because that's when I think that this recession is really going to start hitting us all in full force. And then we're going to start talking about how to start a side business in uncertain times, especially right now. Why is that a good idea if it is a good idea? And then lastly, I'm going to talk about the basics of value investing and how you can get started, and how I'm going to try to boil down the essentials of basically a 2-year MBA program into the probably next hour. So I'm going to be talking about those first 4 or 5 items in the next 15, 20 minutes. So I'll put a timestamp down in the description after this live stream's over. So if you guys who just want to jump straight into the value investing part, you guys can click on that and get right to it. And then at the tail end of this, I'll start answering questions. You guys can communicate and ask me questions at any time. I'll answer you guys the best I can. But we're going to do a valuation of PayPal. And then if we have time, maybe we'll do another one. I've updated my spreadsheet a little bit, so it should be a little bit smoother, but we'll see. We're doing this live, so we'll have to kind of roll with it. All right. So how's it going, everybody? Looks like there's 7 of us in the room right now. Let me know, will somebody just type in the chat if my audio's okay? I can't really hear myself. Actually, you guys know what? I should probably do this real quick. Hang on, you guys hear an echo. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3. Go. Okay. Cool. That's working. All right. So the first thing about the stimulus update. So as you guys know, I'm not sure if you guys are reading it. I love going to Forbes.com. You guys can probably, there's Morningstar. There's a bunch of different sites out there that I like to get my news from. And Forbes is my go-to that I check every morning. And if you guys go there, you'll see or notice that there's a bunch of articles coming out because most recently on Friday, House of Representatives passed the stimulus plan. Or I'm sorry. They didn't pass it. Well, they did pass it. It's the HEROES Act. So in this HEROES Act, there's a couple of key things. It's $3 trillion, which is insane. It got passed by 208 votes to 199 votes. And the meat and potatoes of it is basically, it's going to be another $1,200 check for everybody who was eligible the last time around. No changes. That $2,000 a month for the next 6 to 12 months is out the door. No longer is that one available. It's $1,200. The only main change to it is instead of dependents being only eligible for $500, they're now eligible up to $1,200. So if you have 2 kids, basically you get $1,200 for you, $1,200 for your spouse, and then $1,200 for each of your kids. So $2,400 total for the kids, and then $2,400 total for you and your partner. Now with this, they are providing with that $3 trillion. Remember, the last package, only $300 billion or so was geared towards individual stimulus checks. The rest was towards state governments, businesses, and all that stuff. It's looking very similar here again. So a small portion is going to stimulus checks. Vast majority of it is going to small businesses, state governments, local governments, schools, hospitals, and unemployment. They're trying to give another additional 6 months of unemployment. Now, what this is, you guys got to understand that the House of Representatives is led by the Democrats. So this was pushed through by the Democrats. It is now going to the Senate, which is led by the Republicans. And then we have the president who has to sign off on it. So there's still 2 more steps, unless I'm missing something, for this to really get through. And so we can definitely expect that the Senate is going to really hack this thing apart, because we know that they don't want to infuse money into the economy at this time. So we'll see what happens, but I know that they've been debating it. It's been ongoing, basically. So we'll see what comes to it. But I don't think it's kind of like a grab bag. At $3 trillion, it's a lot more money to print. Just to give you guys an idea, in 2008 during that recession when we did all that crazy bailout of the auto manufacturers and the banks, we printed roughly $2 trillion. I shouldn't say that we printed, but roughly $2 trillion was put into our economy over 4 years. Okay, so think about $500 billion going into the economy every year. If this thing passes all the way through and President Trump signs it, we have infused $6 trillion in the matter of like 3 months. It's completely insane. And I'm going to get into this a little bit later, why that's so important for us investors in real estate and the stock market, and how I once believed that if you infuse that much money and cash into the system, you actually create a ton of inflation. But I was wrong. It's the exact opposite. And I'll explain that to you guys here in a little bit once we get there. So we still have a little bit more time, a little bit more. We have to wait and see what happens to this. Let's see if they pass it sooner or later. But we know that the Republicans want to wait. Okay, so moving into, actually this is a good segue into why it's going to be deflation when they inject this money. So right now, I think we're just buying time. The Republican Senate is going to buy time, and this is super important for the stock market and super important for real estate, because how prices go up and down, it all dictates on really a couple of key numbers: interest rates, inflation, deflation, and then unemployment rates, and then GDP. And then treasury rates. Okay, those are the main ones. There's obviously other factors, but those are probably the main key ones that we can look into. Now, inflation is basically, as you guys know, if, for example, you have a car that you bought for $10,000, and then the next week, all of a sudden, for some reason, your specific car goes up to $100,000, it has inflated in price, and that can be due to all of the other cars of that same vehicle is out of the market, and yours is one of the few that's still in there, and it's in high demand. Okay, very boiled down version of how that works. Deflation is the opposite of inflation. So the price of goods goes down. That's because nobody wants it. So let's say that same vehicle that you have, you shove a bunch of more into the marketplace, and the price of your car goes down. Okay. Now, the problem with what's going on with the economy right now, and the central banks is printing so much money, is you'd think that so much more money coming into the economy is going to inflate prices because so much money is going in, right? Extra money, more money is being spent, more money going in the market. That's why I said that the market was going up, which is partially true, but not totally. However, it's the opposite, because for inflation to really occur, you need spending. And right now, people aren't spending. So even with this huge infusion of cash, you got to remember a lot of this money is being used to either hold on to, people are saving it, waiting for the rainy day or the crazy perfect storm that's about to hit us, or they're just paying for rent, utilities, essentials, groceries. They're not going out buying new cars. They're not buying clothes. You can see the stock market for traveling is down. People aren't traveling. And so retailers are down. All the stuff that would cause inflation is down. So what that means is that deflation is occurring because when you print that much money, you devalue the dollar. And when you devalue the dollar, that allows foreign investors with other dollars, yen, pounds, euros, whatever you want to call it, they can come into the US stock market and they can buy up more stock for less money because it's cheaper now. Okay, you guys following? And so that's why we're seeing this temporary period of, it's called the hope period, of when stocks start going back up. Okay, and we're going to get into this a little bit later and why value investing is so important. Because we saw a steep decline, we saw the government drop interest rates to zero, print a bunch of money, and then all of a sudden stock market goes up. And then we're still like, wait, we're still in the middle of this thing. Nobody's making money. Well, a few companies are making money, but the vast majority of the economy is not making money. Why is the economy going up? Or why is the stock market going up? It's because of deflation. So much money is going into the system. People aren't spending it. Devalues the US dollar. Foreign currency goes in. the banks are getting all the money. The banks have to reinvest in the market. So all this money is just going back into the stock market, and then foreign money is coming into the stock market, pumping up prices. That's why we have such crazy overvalued companies right now that we're going to start looking at. PayPal's one of them. Okay. Let's go into, switching gears here real quick. Do we have any questions about that? No? Okay. Looks like we are good. What's up, everybody? Say hi in the chat so I know who's here. Hopefully it's a couple of new folks, but if you're one of the regulars, say hi. The next thing I want to switch gears is prepping for a long recovery. One thing that's really important for us to understand, especially as investors, and whether it's properties, real estate, commercial, residential, your day trader, your long-term investor, I guess the day trader doesn't really matter that much, but long-term investors, who I would consider myself a value investor, is that we've got to prep for a long recovery. Basically, everything that we've seen, and I'll show graphs here in a little bit, is that if you look back at the recessions, that was similar to what the government is doing now, and this is not going to be a short-term thing. It's not a quick in and out. And the reason behind that is because this isn't just a monetary policy where they're trying to fix inflation. Unemployment's low because a major manufacturer or a major industry like oil or like the automotive industry went down for some reason. This is hitting us across the board. So across the nation, across all industries, and then globally. Okay, and to get this machine firing back up again and running with unemployment rates close to an estimated between 15 to 20%, it's going to take us a while. And we got to remember that the economy is kind of like this lagging thing behind what's happening. So right now we've got this coronavirus, this COVID-19, the pandemic, all this is stuff happening right now. Okay, everything's shut down. Earnings statements. The burn rate of companies, how well people can get jobs again. These are all lagging. It will come in time. And so right now is not the worst of it. If you go back and you look at the 2008 recession, you look at the 1980 recession, you will see that it's a sharp drop. Pops up a little bit, drops again, pops up, drops again, and each time it drops harder and lower. And right now, we're at that little pop-up. It's called the hope period, where everybody's hoping and thinking that things will get better. And then once earnings comes out, which is going to be July and August, when earnings, the next quarter, when people start the companies show how bad earnings really are, we're going to see another drop-off. Okay? And then don't think that's the beginning of it. I remember the 2008, it took nearly a year and a half, 2 years. Remember, I bought my first property in June 2007. I started seeing signs August, September 2007, and then the market started going to free fall right around January 2008, and it didn't hit bottom until spring of 2009. So almost 2 years exactly for us to hit bottom in during the 2008-2009 crash. We are 2 months into this. We're 3 months into this, okay? We've got a long ways to go. And so don't spend all of your money right now. And more importantly, what I want you to understand is be patient, and this is the time to prepare for the recession. A lot of people think that we're in a recession right now. We are, I guess you could say, but it doesn't mean we're not in the thick of it. We're not in 2009 when everything is horrible and the market has tanked. We're not there yet, okay? I think we are. I could be completely wrong, but all the signs are pointing towards it, right? The economy hasn't even started up yet, okay? And then the market is at like new levels of high, especially for some companies that are trading even higher than pre-COVID-19. It's insane. Right now is the time to work on your balance sheet. And so you guys are probably hearing this a lot. Sounds weird to apply it to a person, but a balance sheet for a company is all it is. It's two things. And we should go over this a little bit later too, is it goes over your assets and your liabilities. That's it. It's like, what assets do you own? I own this microphone. I own this iMac. I have this monitor. I have this camera. Those are assets. A company does the same exact thing, except they have I have this giant $2 million machine. I have this giant $1 billion factory, and I have this right? And they look at the liabilities, how much credit card debt, short-term debt, long-term debt, accounts payables, things that they have to pay off. That's the stuff. Your balance sheet is the same thing, but your balance sheet consists of your home, your car, your boats, your motorcycles, whatever it is, and then your debt or your liabilities, credit card, personal loans, student loans, mortgage, that type of stuff. When I say strengthen your balance sheets, the same thing when we start talking about strengthening balance sheets for companies, is that at this time, you want far more assets, specifically liquid assets, which is cash, not your motorcycle. I'm talking about cash in the bank or cash on hand, things that you can liquidate very quickly, right? Because if you need it, you can use it. For two reasons. One is that we're going to have to weather this storm. If and when things get worse, it's going to get really, really bad. And for those of us who lived through the 2008-2009 recession, you guys saw how bad it really got, right? And for those of us who are going to go through this now with 20% unemployment rates, that's you guys, that's nearly 40 million unemployed Americans. That's completely insane. I think in 2008, 2009, we were about half that, okay? But the industries weren't shut down. You need a strong balance sheet to survive, to pay off, not just pay off what your monthly expenses are, but also to invest and buy into opportunities. The biggest thing I've told a lot of millennials at that time, but for people who are young, who are reaching out to me through Instagram, through YouTube, is you gotta make your move in times like this, especially if you're younger and you can afford the risk. That's how I ended up quitting my job. That's how I retired early. That whole message, right? It wasn't because I'm smart or above average or anything like that. I got really lucky that I graduated college right before the recession. I had a little bit of money. I had a good job, and I was able to double down, triple down, quadruple down on properties and investments during one of the worst recessions in modern history. We are about to go into another one. You can do the same thing. You just have to be prepared. And so when I say strengthen your balance sheet, get rid of the assets that are draining you. So that motorcycle that you may not need, that boat that you may not need, liquidate them before we get into the recession. You might take a small hit on it, but it's better for you to have that cash on hand, that liquid asset, and reduce your liabilities. So when things do get tougher, if you may lose your job or you see a great opportunity on a house, a property, an investment, you have the ability to do so. The worst thing that I can see, and I know this is going to happen with both my friends and my family members, I've already tried talking to my parents, talking to my partner Sarah, is that you want cash right now, because I'm telling you, properties are going to show up. We're going to see insane deals on stocks, and you can't do anything about it if you don't have the cash. And that's not even talking about living expenses. And that's something that I want to address too. And I know I've probably talked to you guys blue in the face about this, is you want to reduce your monthly expenses as low as possible. And there's so many other financial channels out there, and I respect them, and they've been very successful in their own right, that say that financial minimalism will not get you to retiring early or becoming wealthy or being successful. I absolutely disagree with them. Okay, there's different ways of doing it, but the one fundamental way that always works is if you are living financially minimalistically. Okay, there's no argument to it. If you're starting off, your expenses are $5,000 a month and my expenses are $1,000 a month, but we make the same wage, who has more leverage and who has more room to move? I do. I have $4,000 more each month to move because my expenses are lower. There's nothing that you can say about that, right? Even if you make double my salary, but your monthly expenses are double mine or triple my monthly expenses, I actually have more dollars entering my bank account than you do. And that's why when I was 21, 22 years old and I was only making about $55,000, $60,000 a year, I made more cash flow than my friends who were engineers or programmers or working in, consulting, business analysts, making $120,000 a year, nearly double mine, but I had more cash flow. Right? And then once I got into properties and investments and stock investing, then really my cash flow started being $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month. Cash flow, money entering my bank account. because my monthly expenses were so low. If you guys don't remember, when I first started this channel, it was called the 24K Life. Stupid name, I know. Everybody thought I was trying to flaunt being like gold and 24K, which I totally get now. But I wasn't. It was about living off of $2,000 a month. And for those of you guys who are watching, the 8 of you who are watching right now, I'm going to tell you a secret that's probably in my other videos, is I live off of about $950 a month, give or take each month. There's some expenses that go up and down, but it's under $1,000, all right? I live inside my home that is mortgage free, that overlooks a really cool view, and I have a Tesla parked in the garage with my work truck out front, and all said and done, it's $955 a month is basically last month, I believe, yeah. Now, with that said, how long can I survive if everything goes bad and I lose one of my income streams? All I need to do is figure out how to make $10,000 a month, or $10,000 a year, or roughly $12,000 a year. Right? Yeah, $12,000 a year. $1,000 a month. That's it. I have multiple income streams that creates at least $1,000 a month. And so what ends up happening is that I can cover my expenses to survive, and then everything else can go into a bank account. It can fund new projects, invest in the stock market, or stash away for a rainy day. And that's what I want to get to next, is once you minimize your financial expenses and once you maximize your income, I understand a lot of us out there, we don't have jobs right now, high unemployment rate, I get it. But because you have that, doesn't mean you can't sell some stuff off. Minimize your expenses by moving in with a family member, moving in with a friend, reducing your expenses, your credit card expenses, maybe calling. Right now there's a lot of student loan forgiveness, mortgage forbearance. Perhaps even calling those up and understanding the rules of that, and maybe taking a slight ding on your credit score, but to reduce your monthly cash flow or cash expenses. Okay. And I want you to focus on saving up at least 2 months of savings. 2 months of expenses. And this is a thing that is probably not going to win me a lot of friends, and a lot of people will disagree with this, is I'm going to be careful how I say this because I don't want to insult anybody. This is not my intent to insult anybody, okay? It's that being where I'm at right now, where understanding both the business side of stuff and then also going into just being in personal finance, is I don't understand how so many folks don't have at least 1 month of savings, especially small businesses. Okay, if this went on 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months, a year, I understand. But for this mass panic to ensue off of 1 month, it's a little bit strange to me. I get it, but still a little bit strange. Okay. At the age of 21, I made it a goal. I had nothing. I graduated with about $12,000. So I had roughly about, at that time, I had about 2-3 months worth of savings saved up, expenses saved up. I was like, you know what? I want a solid 6 months. And that was my goal. Okay. Now, as I started saving, I was like, man, with this nut, I call it a nut, your monthly nut of, sounds kind of weird, but you guys get it, like a nut, like your squirrel, your nut that you have to take care of each month. It was roughly about $4,000 when I was at 21 years old, with my mortgage, taxes, yada, yada, all that stuff, right? I was like, geez, I have to save up $4,000 on my salary in order to cover this. Well, it'd be a lot easier if it was only $3,000 a month, right? And then it's like, oh, this would be a lot easier at $2,000 a month. And that just kind of took off. So then I started saving up money, decreasing my monthly expenses, saved up 6 months. I then saved up 8 months. Then I got to 10, and then 24, 36, 48, 60 months. And now I'm at a point where I can literally survive 1,000 plus months because my monthly expenses are so low, but my income stream, my cash flow, and then my liquid assets are so much higher. And what that does is it gives you a lot of breathing room, and it allows you to do a lot of more stuff. And that's true freedom. That's financial freedom. So what I encourage you to do is, I'm not telling you that just to hurt feelings. My intent behind that is to encourage you during this time right now. We are not in the midst of this recession yet. We are seeing the beginnings of it. Use this time. Liquidate what you can liquidate that you don't need. Build up that cash reserve. Get at least 2 months of your expenses saved. If you can get to 6 months, that's even better. That gives you more money to play with. Okay? All right. I'm off my soapbox. Do we have questions? Let's jump over here. Oh, it says I can't connect. Can you guys connect to me in the chat? It says that I'm not able to connect with you guys. Remember, Can you guys read this? I don't think my chat's working. All right. Well, the chat's not working. It's going to be hard for me to talk to you guys. All right, we'll keep going here for a second. I don't know why this isn't working. Okay, we'll just move on. I'm sorry. I guess I could try to restart this. No, I don't want to mess up the live stream, but I want to be able to talk to you all. Hang tight, okay? I'm gonna come right back. I'll edit this out in the main video, but I'm gonna refresh this to see if I can try to get this chat coming back. Okay, there it is. The chat. I was not getting your messages. The chat room's live. Okay. What's going on, Jen? Grace? Jen A, that is. If it's still skipping, let me know. I can try to change. Nope, I can't now. Sorry, guys. This is like my third live stream, so if it's a little bit a little janky, just I apologize. What's up, DMN, Giggy, Gigi, and Jojo? What's up? Paradoximus, hey. Steve, what's going on? Always learning, welcome. All right, I'm sorry, you guys. I was wondering why everybody wasn't chatting in here, but I'm glad that worked out. All right, any disagreements, agreements, questions about what I just said? I hope that makes sense. You guys know what? I'm gonna actually put it. I'm gonna put it in the description later. I won't dig into it right now, but there's a great video on YouTube. It's 30 minutes, and I know it sounds long. It goes by like this. It's great animation. It's by Ray. Gosh, I always mess up his last name. DeLeo. World-renowned, very famous investor, hedge fund guy. He does a lot of TED Talks about success and bettering yourself. Anyways, he has this great video on how the economy works. And it basically explains in way better vocabulary of what I was trying to describe about the inflation versus deflation and how it affects the stock market. He released this in 2013, and it's identical, almost to the T, what's happening right now. Everything, minus the corona thing. But it's a great explanation of how the economy works, and it gives you a little bit more understanding how things tick and why we see these ups and downs in the stock market. But essentially, save up as much money as you possibly can. Watch the stock market. It's going to dip again. And when this thing hits, it's going to hit us really hard. By us, I mean the economy. Good morning, Manuel. Where's Gen F? Just Gen A in here today, huh? Steve, are you still in here? I know Steve had some great questions. Always learning. Are you still in here? Grace, you still in here? A lot of you folks had some great questions. that it's hard for me to answer, and I want to give you guys meaningful answers, but sometimes I just have to type like a novel, and sometimes it's a lot easier for me just to speak it and say it. So I want you guys to be able to ask those questions in here today. All right, cool. Shifting gears again. Okay, so I want to read off some numbers for you, just so for you guys to understand. And we're gonna get into this value investing thing, I promise you, but I want to set up the context so you can understand what we're doing with value investing. And then we're going to get into the side business, and then we're going to get into the basics of value investing, and then we're going to do PayPal. But for anybody who's just jumped in, we just went over the stimulus update, how the House of Representatives just passed through the HEROES Act, $3 trillion more dollars to be brought into the economy, which mostly of it will be printed, but it still has to go through the Republican-led Senate, and the president will then have to sign off on it. So still two more big steps. And we also talked about how we're not in a recession yet. Things are horrible. You look at the stock market, it is not reflecting the economy, the market is not reflecting the economy. What that means is that we need to start prepping, because I say that we still have about 6 to 12 months before we really start seeing things get really, really bad. And what that means is fixing your balance sheet. Make sure that your assets, especially your liquid assets, is far superior than your liabilities, okay? And then now we are going to talk about, I want to share some numbers with you. I'm not going to share the screen with you just yet, but I want you guys to try to envision this in your mind's eye, okay? I think you guys, it's only 4 numbers. I want to take you guys back to May 2019, okay? The GDP growth, okay, of the United States was roughly about 2%. The GDP growth of today, May 2020, is negative 4.8%. We're talking about trillions of dollars of difference, okay? I want you guys to remember that. The 10-year Treasury bond yield rate last year, May 2019, was 2.5%. 10-year Treasury bond today is 0.25%, all right? The unemployment rate last year in May of 2019 was 3.8%. Unemployment rate today is not exactly known, but it's somewhere flirting between 15 to 20%. All right. The PE ratio of the overall stock market, I believe this was the Dow Jones, of May 2019, the PE ratio, or the price to earnings ratio. So that multiple that we've been talking about, how many times earnings is the price of the stock is valued over how much earnings they create, was 17x. Okay, so for every dollar the average company in the Dow Jones created, the market would pay $17 for it. May 2020, with all the other numbers shot, it is trading at 20.3x. Does that make sense? GDP is negative. Unemployment rate is the highest ever since the Great Depression. And 10-year Treasury bond yield is down by a magnitude of 10. Yet the stock market is valued even more so. What is that? Valued at 20%? 20% higher than it was last year when everything was great. Bit strange, right? We've got a long road ahead of us, and this cash infusion, it's going to devalue our currency right now. It's going to artificially pump up the stock market, but what we really have to be mindful of is that down the road, several years down the road, I'm talking about 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years down the road, we may face crazy inflation. You guys got to remember, before this whole thing happened, we had roughly $15 trillion in the entire United States, like actual dollars that's being handed around, right? We just printed another we're about to print another 6 trillion. We've only printed about 3 trillion. Another 3 trillion might come through. That can cause a lot of inflation. Remember, inflation is based off of how much money is entering the system and then how much money is being spent. Right now, money is not being spent. That's why we see deflation. All right. Now, a lot of folks talked about or asked about business, starting a business, starting a side hustle. And this is what I'm going to tell you. Right now is the time to get started, okay? And the reason behind that is twofold. One is learning takes time, right? Learn a new skill. You don't have to start a new business. Isn't like you have to go buy a new truck, buy a new warehouse, buy inventory, do that stuff, unless that's the field that you are in. But a lot of times it's about learning a new skill. This is the time to learn, especially when we're all locked down. I guess things are starting to open up a little bit. There's never been a moment in time where there's more information online. The whole thing that you're watching right now, my entire channel, I am not a videographer. I'm not a photographer. I have no idea. I have no training in editing videos or running live stream. This is all stuff that I've learned. And I learned it by watching YouTube, which in itself is very kind of ironic. So whether it's photography, graphic design, math, science, whatever it is that you want to do or learn, this is the time, okay? While we're all inside and you, instead of playing video games and watching Netflix, learn something. Now, the other reason why this is a good time to start a side business is, actually, I'm going to say it's threefold. That's the other thing is that things will start being on sale. As businesses shut down, sorry, that was my ring. As things begin to shut down, things come on sale. In 2008, 2009, everything was on sale, right? Whether you wanted to buy construction equipment, you wanted to buy a stove or I try to say stove and oven at the same time. Well, an oven, a commercial grade oven, everything was on sale. Restaurants were fire selling because everything was getting liquidated. So a gas range that would normally cost $15,000, you could buy it for $2,000 in 2008, 2009 as restaurants were going out of business, right? So that's when you go in. And a lot of folks that made a lot of money or the people that were able to get in for really cheap. It's just like a cheap stock, right? If I see, let's say, Apple, for example, if it drops down to $90 and it's trading at $300 right now, yeah, I'm gonna buy some Apple stock. Same thing, if I see a $15,000 brand new, or not brand new, but relatively new, good condition gas commercial stove, and I know it'll be worth that much in a couple of years, and I can buy it right now for $1,500 or $2,000, and I have a place to store it, and I have that free cash flow, or I have that free cash, yeah, I might buy that if I understand that industry, okay? So what I'm saying is that you can get things for cheap, whatever your industry is. All things we're gonna get, especially as people not spending money, this is also deflation, the value of stuff will start to drop. And then the other thing is that as businesses close up, as people aren't able to pay their bills, and it's an unfortunate thing, is that it causes a vacuum, okay? That means that there's things outside that are pulled away. So for example, I don't have a hairstylist or anything, obviously. I'm my own hairstylist. But there's a lot of folks that aren't able to, we know people who've lost their salons or their barbershops, yeah, that have been open for years, decades. There's going to be a vacuum for somebody else to enter that marketplace because there's still the same number of people that still need haircuts, right? Or their houses cleaned or whatever it may be. So learn a skill while you're at home. Don't just play video games, eat junk food, and watch Netflix, which I've been doing. By the way, you guys should totally watch Atypical Netflix. I've been caught on, I don't watch Game of Thrones. I don't watch like Sopranos or anything like that, but I got into Atypical. It's a great, I can't even explain it. It's a great, it follows an 18-year-old high school senior who is autistic. And I have autistic tendencies somewhat. A lot of times when I was younger, they thought that I was on the spectrum. I don't think I'm on the spectrum. I think I definitely lean in that way. But anyways, it's really cool to see how this story plays out and watching this autistic kid go through normal life. Anyways, don't waste all your time watching Netflix is what I'm trying to tell you. Focus on a skill. Find cheap stuff that you guys can buy up. If you guys want to get into videography, I'm sure if you go to eBay, you go to Craigslist, you'll be able to find a DSLR for half price of what it is at Best Buy or Amazon, okay? Get into photography. Buy the lens that you need, right? Maybe make some money off of it when things do start opening up. Go outside, practice, and then start selling your services for $50, $75, $100. And then start understanding where the vacuums are occurring. I definitely know that there's salons and restaurants that are going bankrupt right now in my city. Like I see them. It's in our local news almost every day. So find where that vacuum is and see if you can enter it. Side businesses are a great way to make money too. If you had a skill or knowledge in a specific industry and you asked me, it's like, hey Kai, should I invest my time and energy into this business or should I invest in stocks? My ideal answer is to do both. You will always make more money investing in a business that you understand, that has the context and the opportunity to make money. So like you don't want to go into iPhone making. You don't want to try to make a smartphone. But if all the restaurants that makes really good Mexican food goes under and you are Mexican and you know how to make really good Mexican, authentic Mexican food, and you open one up where the 5 Mexican restaurants that are the most popular shut down, it's a good opportunity, right? Same thing for cleaning. Right now, a lot of cleaning because of the hotels being shut down and then also Airbnb, HomeAway, VRBO, all this stuff. A lot of cleaning crews, a lot of cleaning companies are getting hurt. They're getting shot, right? If you focus on sanitization and doing deep cleans and you start the business up right now for really cheap, this is going to come back. People like me with Airbnbs and rentals will have to work with you because you're one of the few major cleaners in the area. Okay, enough of that. Let's jump over here to the questions real fast. Gen F, what's going on? Steve, overinflated stock. Jen, what was your, first off, Steve, what do you mean by overinflated stock? Are you asking me a question? Gen F, what was your side hustle and why does it suck? Because you sold the business that you started up? I think I am. I sold it to make a big. Oh, Gen F. Okay, so for folks who aren't reading the chat, one of our viewers, our regular viewers, Miss Gen F, it looks like she sold a side hustle, and now that the lady that bought it is very successful during this time, so she must be in an industry that is COVID or Corona. What's it called? Not impacted by Corona or the COVID. Oh, she had to pay the business tax. Oh, it was a car wash? Gen F, for those who know me or watch my previous videos, is I absolutely love self-running simple businesses. I love simple business. When businesses are too complicated, and mind you, I have an MBA and I was a business analyst and I did the finances and operations of a lot of startup companies. So I understand the ins and outs of companies more so than the average person. The simple business of a car wash, I absolutely love. Okay, especially in really dusty, rainy, muddy areas. Okay, it's a simple operation. It runs, and you just send customers through the tunnel, the car wash tunnel. Okay, unless you have this is a detail station where you have people hand washing everybody. But that's a brilliant business. I can't believe you sold that, Jen. Man, that's awesome. All the car washes in my area, I live in the Pacific Northwest, so they make bank. I would, if it was in a good location, man. Sorry, not to make you feel bad, Jen. That's a great story though. Okay, Steve, about construction equipment. Construction equipment, it's so back in 2008, 2009. I'm not sure if you're old enough, but we saw this massive recession. It's called the Great Recession of the housing market. So naturally, because the housing market just basically imploded on itself, construction went with it. So everybody, just like right now, but this is more with the travel industry, but companies that bought the planes, people who bought investment properties who weren't properly leveraged, right? We see this quick implosion where all of a sudden something dries up, demand dries up. So there's no travel right now. So now you have these companies like Boeing, Southwest, Delta, United, who bought these planes that are literally sitting in what are called parking lots or graveyards for airplanes, right? Because there's no demand for it. The same thing happens in the residential or, closer to us, the residential industry, residential home industry, is that people's like, oh my gosh, everybody's buying homes, everybody's getting leveraged. The business is booming. Let's buy all this equipment. Let's create a development company, a building company, and let's build homes. Let's build properties to build commercial projects. We need a skid steer. We need a bulldozer. We need this. We need that. And they just buy it, and they buy it up with credit or debt. And then once 2008, 2009 hit, all that demand dries up. No income coming in. That means you can't pay your debts or your services, or you can't service your debt. And now you have to get rid of it. You might claim bankruptcy and restructure, or you might just claim bankruptcy and walk away from it. And what ends up happening is creditors have to sell it, or if the business owner, let's say me, if I have like 5 skid steers at $50,000 a piece, and I just need to get the money, I just need to liquidate them to pay off my debt or get out the best I can. I paid $50,000 for them. Nobody wants to buy construction equipment, and I can only sell them for $15,000 each. I might have to sell each of them for $15,000 and take that huge loss. Does that make sense? I just can't sit on 5 skid steers. And that's what happened in 2008, 2009 is a lot of companies were sitting on millions of dollars of construction equipment, and they had to get rid of them for like 10 cents on a dollar. I was stupid. I wouldn't say I was stupid. I was naive, and I didn't know anything about that. I didn't understand. I also didn't have the cash, and so like there's these pieces of equipment that are $250,000 being sold for $20,000 or $30,000. And to me, I was like, $30,000 is a lot of money. But what I didn't know was that just 9 months ago, it was purchased for $230,000 or something like that. So that's a construction equipment. We will see that happen again now in the next 12 months. I promise you that. Steve, he wishes he wasn't old enough. Okay. Let's get into the basics of value investing, and then let's start doing PayPal. If you guys have other businesses that you guys want me to analyze, throw it into the chat. I want you guys to remember what I'm doing here today with the companies. I have to say this is I am not giving you investment advice. Okay, I'm not telling you to buy. I'm not telling you to sell. Some of these companies, I'm not invested in any of these companies right now, but I could be now either in the past or in the future. So. Please don't take what I'm telling you as gospel or absolute research. This is what I learned. This is what I do. This is how I do it personally, but it does not mean it's the answer or it's the right thing for you. I'm giving you a glimpse of how a value investor with official education or training does it, and hopefully you can take it and you can make your own decisions, do your own research, and perhaps it can help you do your own research and see how you can do it, okay? So value investing. What is value investing? There's 3 types of primary types of traders. There's the day trader, there's the speculative trader, and then there's the investment trader, or value of the investment trader, the value investor. Did I say that right? Day trader, speculator, and value. I could be wrong. I'm sure some of you guys out there would tell me. Those are the 3 that are in my head right now, okay? I don't like the first 2, and the reason behind that is not because I hate or that I'm not trained in it. I don't know anything about it. Actually, right now, I'll show you guys my portfolio later, is I'm actually starting to get into speculative a little bit by trading options. Okay, if you guys don't know what options are, it's basically you're just betting for or against the market. And so you're buying bets. It's very similar to gambling. But value investing is what I was trained in. And the reason why I gear towards value investing is not just because that's my entire background in education. It's that it's the one that makes the most sense. You're not gambling on what you think the stock price is going to do today or tomorrow or next week. You're betting on a company based on its finances. So it's like if Gen F had that car wash, right? Or Steve or anybody else or Grace or whoever else is in this channel, you have a business and you come to me and it's like, dude, this is a sound business. I have a lot of customers. Like demand is off the rocks. I run this company super well. I run this car wash super well. Look at my numbers. Here's my last 10 years of finances. I'm growing every single year because this area is booming. And you know what? Dust, pollen, mud is not going away, and people want clean cars. I'm investing in that. I'm investing in the business. I'm not investing on like how many red cars will be going through the car wash tomorrow. All right, that'd be gambling. right? Now you can go and say like, hey, I know there's a lot of red cars in this area and it's gonna be a sunny day and a lot of those red cars are sports cars and convertibles, so we could say that a lot of red cars will be going through the car wash. That's still gambling, right? But if I go to Jen and say like, hey, I really like your cash flows. You have a ton of cash in the bank, you have no debt, you have a small credit card that you pay off every single month. Yeah, I'm gonna invest in your business. That's a very sound business. That's value investing versus speculating or day trading. Does that make sense? Okay, so when it comes to value investing, you're looking for a couple of key things. Let me switch this up so you guys can see my screen here. Give me just a second. Oh. All right, so we're gonna make this smaller. And if this blocks anything, just let me know. Let me move this over here. Move this back over here. And boom. Okay. You guys all see this? Let me get to the financials. So I'll just use PayPal for now for this example because we're going to be going through this. And I haven't looked at PayPal yet. I just pulled this up right before I started the live stream. The very first thing with value investing is you are basically trying to value a company. Okay? Forget the market value. Forget what people are paying for stock prices. You don't care about that right now, for right now. What you care about is fundamentally, just kind of like how you have a formula in geometry or algebra or anything else, there's a certain type of formula that you can change some variables in where you're trying to value the company. And how you value the company is based off of cash flow and cash in the bank. That's it. All right. You guys will hear this a lot. If you guys are reading Forbes or you guys are reading anything in the marketplace, and you guys will hear a lot more about the stock market here, whether you like it or not, in the upcoming several months, is that you'll hear two main words. One is liquidity and one is solvency. Okay. Liquidity and all these words. And when you guys see numbers like this, I just want to tell you guys this one thing. Don't be intimidated. It's made by freaking, financial engineers and accountants and people who they're just stuck in their own head. They don't make it look nice and fancy or they don't make it look nice and simple for folks like us. Okay, even I get confused. All right, and that's why sites like Robinhood, it does so well because it simplifies it. And then you go to I like using it, TD Ameritrade, which is a very advanced trading platform, but it's so confusing, okay? It's the same thing with all these terminologies. Liquidity and solvency. Liquidity is cash. How much cash do you have, okay? How much money do you have in your bank account? That's liquidity, right? If I asked you tomorrow, how much cash can you put in front of me right here? That's liquidity, okay? Solvency is how much cash flow you have. Cash flow is really simple. Don't get it gets confusing when people use unlevered cash flow, free cash flows, levered cash flows. Cash flow really boils down to one thing. How much money is entering your bank account at the end of the month? When everything is paid, everything is taken care of, how much cash is entering your bank account? Is it positive? Is it going up or is it going down? That's it. And the problem right now, that I keep saying people, companies are trying to fix right now, I guess people are too, is the liquidity issue, the cash issue, because they have to pay rent, they have to pay utilities, they have to pay their debts, they have to pay their employees, payroll, all this stuff, right? You need cash to do that. You ideally don't want to put that on credit or debt, right? Because remember, credit and debt for us individuals, you're looking at 15, 20, 25% interest rate, which is insane, right? So you want cash. Never run out of cash. You walk away from this video or just me in general, you never watch me again, never run out of cash. You always want cash. You want a large cushion of cash, personal life and business. Cash flow is basically what gives you liquidity, right? And if your cash flow is non-existent or below what your expenses are, you have a burn rate. So just think about this. If you make a certain amount of money each month, let's say that you make, we'll keep it simple, $5,000 a month, your expenses are $4,000, what's your cash flow? Should be $1,000, right? And let's say that you did a really good job in a previous or in your investments and you have like $15,000 in savings. So your liquidity is $15,000. Your income is $5,000. Your cash flow is $1,000, right? But if your cash flow, let's say that your expenses are $6,000, what's your cash flow now? Negative $1,000, right? That negative $1,000 is now your burn rate. And how long can you survive? 15 months, because you have negative $1,000 in cash flow and you have $15,000 in liquidity. That's your cash. That is essentially what value investing is doing. We just do it on a bigger scale for businesses. Is I'm trying to look at the cash in the bank and their cash flows, and I assign a value to it. And that's what I do when I'm going through my spreadsheet and stuff. All I'm doing, I'm pulling those numbers so I can calculate and give, and I'll point it out when I do PayPal here in a little bit, is I'm trying to find a valuation. Then once I come up with that final valuation for that entire company based on how much cash it creates, then I compare that to the stock market and I can see if it's undervalued or overvalued. And then I can play around with numbers and kind of like dig into things a little bit deeper. But that's essentially it. So all I want you to remember, the first thing about value investing is understanding how much cash they have and their free cash flows or their cash flows to the firm, okay? Oh, where did you guys go? Sorry, I'm trying to get this all organized with these two screens. Okay. The second thing is growth. So if we jump in here real quick, I should have actually shown you this. I'm going to backstep real quick just for the 15 of you guys who are still here. The cash flows, there's two ways of looking at it. First, let's take a look at cash. So looking at PayPal right now, all I got to do is just, if I'm in Morningstar, I type in PayPal, I go to financials, I scroll down to balance sheet, and right here, cash and cash equivalents. This is what I'm interested in. They have $10.19 billion. All right, not bad. Real quick too, we'll talk about this in a little bit. They have about $8 billion in debt. So what this is saying is that their cash can take care of their debt right now if they had to. For cash flows, for us to find that, we go down to, surprise, surprise, statement of cash flows. And all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna click on this. And then what we're gonna do is, I talked about this in my previous video, you can look it up. It's the one number that you, if you wanna take a look at for a business, and all you're gonna look for, it's the same on everything. It is, where is it? Total, nope. Total cash generated from operating activities. This right here. So we're gonna scroll over to 2019, you'll see, why is this so small? Right here. So you can see in 2015, it goes from 2.5 billion to 3.16 billion to 2.5, 5.5. That was a big year, 2017 to 2018. And then it dips back down to 4.5 billion. That's the cash flow I was just talking about, okay? That's just operationally. Operation is different than, we'll get into this a little bit later about financing and investing, all right? We just want to know how well the business does, the core of the business. And then what we have to take out though, because the core of the business, you sometimes need to buy machinery, property, warehouses, office space, whatnot, depending on the industry. And so we take this and we subtract out CapEx, which is right, if you scroll right down here, it's called capital expenditures, or it's a purchase of property, plant, and equipment. And so you can see right here, PayPal was spending roughly about 0.7, about $700 to $800 million each year on CapEx, capital expenditures. And all you do is you take that and you subtract it from the cash generated from operating activities. Those are the two. And if you go into any of the statements of cash flows in Morningstar, these two are always right here. All right, they might be shifted around a little bit based on the company, but basically these are the two that you want to look at. That's cash flow. And then I just showed you how to do cash. Cash, you just go to the balance sheet. Remember, balance sheet just shows you what the property or what the company owns. we scroll down. You can look at that simple chart at the very beginning, or you can just go in here. You go to cash and cash equivalents, and you add it to short-term investments. Total cash right there, 10.76. Those are the two. So right off the bat, I know that they have enough cash to pay off their debt, and I know that they are cash flow positive operationally. Okay, we'll talk about that later. Does that make sense? You guys got questions on that? Okay, next is we are looking at growth. This is super important. Is that we know that inflation averages at about 2 to 3% each year. So just for you to stay stagnant, you have to grow it by at least 3%. But we all know that there's companies that grow at a faster rate. And based on how fast you can grow, that is an indicator of how much we can value you. So for you, for Jen, for example, let's say that she's growing super fast and that she's getting, first day she gets 10 cars, next day she gets 11 cars, next day she gets 12 cars, and we put on it, she's like, man, each month she's growing at like 25%. And then after that, we think that it's gonna taper off and go down to 15%, and then Jen's car wash is gonna kind of taper out and it's gonna grow at 10% every single month, right? That's way higher than 3% a year. So we would give Jen a very high multiple. Now let's say that her car wash, she doesn't fix it, her employees are really rude, and the soap doesn't set up right, people drive out there really, and she's barely like, 1 month because there's a big storm, she gets a big spike, she grows by like 20%, but then everything goes back to normal, it drops back down, it goes maybe even negative 5%, and it bumps up to 3%, it goes back down to negative 5%, it goes to 2%, and it's all over the board. Two companies that are pretty much identical in the service and the industry have two very different valuations because of the multiple that we apply to it because of their growth. And the growth is what I'm talking about, is just their total revenue. There's a couple numbers here that's important of the growth rate, is how fast is their revenue growing and how fast their profits are growing. So there's a couple of different line items for profit. So revenue is just basically cash coming in to your business because customers are giving you money, whether it's through credit card or through cash. Profits, gross profits right here, is how much did it cost you to make that money, right? You gotta pay rent, you gotta pay for the soap, you gotta pay for the water, the electricity, yada yada, the employees, that type of stuff. And how fast is that growing at the same rate? Because let's say that Jen, I'm not picking on Jen here, but let's say Jen is really bad at managing her soap expense. She's just buying whatever soap. She's not paying attention. So soap expense goes to the roof. So even though revenue is growing, but because Jen isn't managing her expenses very well, her gross profit is growing slower. Oh, that's saying something, right? That's saying that management can't keep up, or there's something going on inside the supply chain that's messing with the profitability. And then you just keep on working down the line to the next profit, which is operating profit, right? If you see that growing slower than revenue, that might be telling you something. That might be saying, hey, maybe salaries, because in SG&A, selling, general, and administrative expenses, maybe it's growing at a faster rate because Jen decides to pay herself a big salary every single month, or that she decided to do a big marketing expense. I'm sorry, Jen, I'm totally picking on you. But you guys get what I'm saying. You want to make sure that the profits are growing at the same rate, or even better, even faster than revenues. So revenues could be growing at 5%, but your profits can be growing at 8%. That's a great situation. Okay. Next one is expense management. So this is actually just kind of bleeds into the last one where we're talking about the growth rate of the gross profits or any of the profits. Is you want to measure, this is called common sizing. Let me try to move this over here to you. So folks who've been watching this, you guys know this already, is common sizing. So this is basically what company is this? This is Marriott. I'm actually really interested in Marriott because their stocks got hit hard. You guys know the hotel industry got hit super hard. But we all know traveling's coming back. If it's not coming back this year, it'll come back next year. If it's not next year, it's the year after. If it's not that year, it's 10 years from now. Marriott is one of the they're like a 100-year-old company. They're not going anywhere. They've got cash, somewhat, but they will be just fine, I think. Not telling you to buy them. But anyways, so what I did is I just took everything from their financial statements and I plugged it in right here, okay? When I common size it, so let's say Cogs. Cogs stands for cost of goods sold. All I'm looking at is I common size it to see what percentage of their revenues do they have to pay for their cost of goods or their expenses, right? And right here, you can see that they're fairly consistent. They actually are getting a little bit better each year. Well, I went back up in 2019, but the first year in 2015, it was roughly 85% of their revenues they had to spend in cost of goods sold, what it cost them to make that revenue. The next year, it got a little bit better. Remember, when you start playing with 1 or 2%, when you're talking about billions of dollars, you're talking about tens of millions of dollars with each percentage point. All right. So they went from 85.3 down to 84.65. And then they went down again to 83.84. So what's that's telling me is that management is doing a good job of reducing expenses. Now I can go down to SG&A, the sales, general, and administrative, and see if they're doing the same thing there. And they are. They went from 4.35 to 4.1 to 3.89. So just between 2015 to 2017, they did huge slashes in expenses, both in the home office, like the administrative side, the selling and marketing, as well as on site. So they did something on site, they did something at the home office to continually reduce their expenses, right? Whether it's management, whether they had a new plan, they bought a new system, or whatever it is that they did. But then we take a look at it again, and then all of a sudden it starts growing again. Right? It kind of did this little dip back up. So then you got to look at it, it's like, what happened there? Did they grow? Did they build new offices? Did they build new hotels? Did they purchase another company? Did they absorb a lot of expenses? And this is stuff to help tell you a little bit more about the company itself. Okay. So far, just to recap, we went over cash flow, liquidity, solvency. We talked about the growth rate of revenues and profit, and then we're talking about managing expenses. All right, those are the first three. The last two is debt. Well, the second to last one is debt, which can be found on the balance sheet. So you guys remember, or we just go back to the main page here. Let me see if I go back here real fast. Right here, we can look at total debt, right? And then we want to dig a little bit deeper. We go into the balance sheet again. We scroll over. We scroll down into the liabilities portion, which is right here. You see total liabilities. And this is all the balance sheet is. Let's see. Watch. I'll close this. Boom. Right. This is the balance sheet, everybody. We'll talk about equity later. That makes it a little bit more confusing. But equity is just basically the stocks, what they're buying back, all the value, what they're doing down there. But the main ones that I want you guys to understand, when people talk about the balance sheet, they're talking about assets and liabilities. And so liabilities, we open this up and they have current liabilities. Current liabilities are things that you have to pay within the next 12 months. But we're interested in their debt. So they have current debt. So sometimes debt becomes due right away, right? Like if you have remember back in 2008 when everybody had those ARMs mortgages, not ARMs, but ARM, adjustable rate mortgages, is that the thing that caused the bubble is people had 3-year ARMs, which means that in 3 years they have to refinance or the ARM adjusts. Some people even had balloon loans, which means they had to pay it all off at a certain time period. But let's see, so right here, they have no current debt. They paid off their current debt last year already. 2019, they have none. All right? And then we go down. Now that's current debt. Let's take a look at long-term debt. We go down here to long-term debt. So back in 2019, they just took out about $5 billion in debt. I'm assuming that was to create something or buy out another company, but they did it. And that's it. And the reason why debt is so important is that it's the same thing as a person. Let's say go back to Jen's example. If Jen pulls out a ton of debt for her car wash company and she has $15,000 in the bank account, but she has $1 million in debt, that's not a very good situation, right? and especially if our cash flows are really low, right? So it's the same thing with companies. If a company has $50 billion in debt, and this is a real thing, but they have only $100 million in cash, you're like, dude, $100 million in cash versus $50 billion in debt? How do you even service your interest, let alone pay principal, right? That's something that we see a lot. So in terms of valuation, you always subtract out debt. Okay, so when I come to a valuation, let's say that I come to a valuation like we'll do here a little bit with PayPal, is I value Jen's company at $2 million. Okay, I'm not sure that's how much you paid for it, Jen, or how much you sold it for, but hopefully you made good money on it. And then let's say that she sells it for $2 million, but then she has $1 million in debt. I'll value her cash flows at $2 million, but if it's $1 million in debt, I got to take that $1 million out of that valuation. So her company is really only worth $1 million. Does that make sense? Because there's debt attached to it. If I hand over here's my recorder, right? If I handed this over to you and this is worth $500, but when I hand this over to you, you actually take on the $250 of debt that's attached to it. You're not gonna just give me $500 and walk away, right? You're gonna give me $250 because you have to pay the $250 in debt off. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right, and the last thing is a little bit more subjective. It's not a number, it's leadership. And leadership really dictates all of this, right? When we think of leaders, we think of immediately in the business world, especially publicly traded companies, we think of Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, right? And that's because leadership really dictates where a company goes. Just like in your own company, if you guys had a job or you guys worked in an office, I'm sure your boss or your boss's boss, your VP, your CEO, whoever, it really dictated how well you liked your job, how well the customers liked your company or your services or product, and how well that company ran. And I think a lot of us, me included, we had certain bosses you're just like, WTF, how's this person even in their position? We didn't understand it, right? The same thing with CEOs, same thing with people who lead these companies. And the best way of doing it is, you guys go up here and you just go, PayPal. Whoops. We talked about this before, is you go in and you type in whatever company, investor relations. You can actually hear these folks speak. It's super easy. So let's say I go in here. I type in PayPal investor relations, the first thing that pops up, and you can immediately scroll down. You should see everything about the company. You can do this for any company, and you can listen to their earnings calls. And you can hear how they speak. You can track their performance. Are expenses going down? Is growth going up? What's been happening the last couple of years that person has been in their position? You can even go into other sites like I use right here, simplywall.street, ST. You can go down to management, and you can see the name of the person, right? This guy's name is Dan Schulman. He's 61 years old. He's been there for 4.8 years, almost 5 years. He's made a lot of money off PayPal. And you can see his performance with company earnings. So you can see like right through here, let's see, his compensation, his salary. So his salary is about $1 million a year. And then he gets a bunch of stocks. But you can see that during his time here, well, he came in here, stocks were going down. Nope, stocks were going back up. The orange is the company stocks, is the earnings. So you can see overall, if you did a line of best fit, that overall he's been doing a pretty good job just looking at earnings. Okay, but we want to hear like what kind of leader is he? What's his what is his vision for the future? What is he going to do for the company next? And that's where we really need to. And one thing I want to push you guys into, whatever companies you're interested in, I do this when I'm working out. I do this when I'm analyzing companies. I do this just in the background. I'll click on listen to web. I won't click on it now because I don't want to start playing. But you listen to these webcasts and you listen to these leaders talk. And it's not just the CEO. It's usually the CFO. It's usually VPs, regional directors. You can hear them all speaking. And you can hear them talking about what they want to do. And it's not always business jargon, okay? Because they're talking to a lot of people that aren't super businessy, right? So if a CFO is talking, he or she is not talking to a bunch of other CFOs, chief financial officers. They're talking to a lot of reporters. They're talking to shareholders. If I'm just a rich, wealthy person that has like, I don't know, $50 million invested in PayPal, they're talking to people like me. And so they kind of speak in layman's terms, so it's easily digestible, right? If you don't understand it, pause it, Google it, and then come back and listen to it. It's a great way to understand it. Okay, so quick recap. This is for the basics of value investing. And then we're going to jump into PayPal here. We got cash in the bank, cash flow. 2 is growth rate of both revenue and growth rate of profits. 3, managing expenses. Are expenses going down or are they going up? You got to track the growth rate or the decline rate just like you track the growth rate of revenue and profits. And then you got 4 is debt. How much debt is inside the company? Because you got to subtract that out of the valuation. And then 5, how strong and how good is that leadership team? Have they been in power for a long time? And during that time period, has earnings gone up or have earnings gone down? And also, what type of leader are they? Do they have a vision for the company? Are they good speakers? Do they sound like somebody that you would trust? What's their background? Are they brand new? Or were they a previous CEO that was very successful at another company? These are things that we need to understand. Okay, that's the basics. Now we're going to jump into the more complicated stuff of how to actually calculate it. All right, before I do that, I'm going to jump over here to the chat, see if there's any questions before we do it. Just a quick recap for anybody who's in here right now is that we talked in the very beginning about the stimulus updates, and then we talked a little bit about how the recession is not here yet, how to prep it, how to work on your own personal balance sheet. And then also we talked about how much you should be saving up. I'm saying saving up at least 2 months of savings, hopefully get more, 6 months plus. And then we started talking about whether you should start a business during this time. And I say, yes, you should. You should ease your way into it because there's a lot of cheap deals. If you can't buy anything yet or you don't see any deals yet on starting a business, start to learn something. The internet is a wealth of information that's free. Okay, and then last thing, we just went over the basics of value investing. All right, let's do PayPal. You guys ready to do this? 13 of you guys are still here. Listen to me ramble. You guys ever get bored listening to me ramble? I feel like I would. All right, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to have to bring this down. Now, a couple of you guys have asked me about this spreadsheet. So you guys can follow along. But you guys are going to see it right now. I don't feel comfortable giving it to you guys for a couple reasons. Not because I hate you guys or anything like that. I love you guys. But there's so many weird formulas and it's so messy that it's only I understand it. And so like if you did one thing that you see me doing, but I know where I need to go adjust that formula, do something different, it screws up the entire sheet. It's going to be more frustrating than anything. I do need to invest some time and just fix it so anybody can use it, but I'm starting a website. I'm doing a website. I'm trying to do these live streams. I'm trying to do 2 to 3 videos a week. On top of that, I'm managing the rentals. I'm doing a house remodeling project. I'm building another shipping container house. There's so much stuff going on. And then I have a girlfriend. And then so there's so much stuff going on, you guys. But not using it as an excuse. I'll get there. But any questions that you guys do have, I encourage you guys to follow along the best you can and see if you guys can track and see what I'm doing. I'm going to try to do it faster for you just so you guys aren't sitting here for 2 hours watching me diddle with my my spreadsheet. All right, So we're doing PayPal. Type that in so I know the date that I am doing it. To the 17th, right? Yeah, 17th. Come up here, change this. And you guys can see exactly how I start analyzing it. And this is strictly surface level. I haven't dug into the earnings reports. I haven't gone into the annual report. I haven't listened to any of the webcasts. This is strictly somebody gave me the financials. I have the financials. I want to do a quick analysis and see how much is this company worth without knowing the backdrop. Then I'll go and I'll dig into the backdrop, the annual report, the earnings report, which is all right here, right? Just type in investor relations. And then we can figure out if it's a company worth investing into, or when everything is overvalued like it is right now. Not everything. There's a couple of stocks that are currently undervalued. But if they're overvalued and they're good companies, Chipotle, for example, Nvidia, for example, Home Depot, for example, when the next market crash hits and these companies go below what our valuation is, it's time to buy them, right? That's the essence. It's to figure out the good companies that are overvalued so we can buy them up when it all goes down. I'm not even talking into my mic. Okay. Yep, no checks. You still get checks, Jen? Man, I didn't know there's a lot of companies still accepting checks. Okay, so we just got PayPal. Let's jump in. You guys taking notes? If I'm going too fast, just let me know, and I'll slow it down. If you guys can't see something because of my ugly face here in the corner, let me try and make this smaller so you guys can see it. Actually, I'll move this up here. There you go. Now you guys can see the numbers a little bit better. Let me get this out of here, get that over here, over here. All right. So diving right in, PayPal. So first thing that we want to do is we want to look at current stock price. So I pulled up PayPal in Morningstar. They are up there, 145.51. Their current PE ratio. Current PE ratio is, we jump, where is it? Is it valuation? Goodness gracious. So normally, I've talked about this in a couple of my other videos. I don't normally do this for growth stocks because growth stocks are a little bit unpredictable and they don't usually have positive cash flows. You cannot run valuations on a company that does not have positive cash flows. The reason for it is, how do you apply a multiple to a negative $1 billion? You can't, right? So what you end up doing to value that is you usually have to go up another profit line. So it might not be your net profit or cash flow. You have to go to your gross profit, or and then that's not as accurate because that doesn't include all the expenses. So, all right, and then let's go jump in. I need to figure out their cash, right? Remember we talked about cash? I forget 'cause my memory's really poor. Ugh, I have to change the sizing of this so I can see it. All right, cash they had, what was it? 10.19. Total debt, 7.97. Boom, boom, boom. By the way, I need a timestamp for this so I can put this in later. What was it? Dang, we're an hour and a half in. You guys got me talking so much. Okay. Outstanding shares. So outstanding shares is going to be in quote, short, invest. So they have, that's in million. So they have 1.173 billion. Right? Right. Tax rate, we'll figure that out here in a little bit. Average interest on debt, we'll figure that out in a little bit. Discount rate. Okay, this is the part of value investing that takes a little bit of experience and time. It's only two numbers, but it makes a big difference, okay? I explained discount rate and EBITDA multiple a couple times before in the past. I'll do it real quick one more time just so you guys know it. Discount rate is a risk premium. This is the reason why the stock market is going crazy right now. If anybody of you guys are listening, the 12 of you here, you guys are going to get a little bit of a secret that not very many other investors know. When interest rates go down to zero, that means that the risk premium basically goes down to zero because there's no alternative. And this is what causes stock markets to go up. If interest rates are at say 6%, for example, right? That means that your money market account, your interest savings account will be around 5, 6, 7%, right? And because interest rates got dropped down to zero by the Federal Reserve, that's why we see savings rates and checking rates of like 0.05 or 0.1%, right? That's the same thing because there's an alternative. Why would I put my money in the stock market to maybe get 6 to 7% if I could just put my money in the savings account and it gets me 6 or 7%? Do you follow that? That is called the discount rate or risk premium. And then on top of that, you add on any more premium depending on the type of company, how risky it is. So right off the bat, how it usually works is you put the basic, whatever usually it's like a 10-year treasury note yield, right? Or money market yield. I use money market just because for me, I can either put my money in the money market or I can invest in the stock. Right now, money market is giving me like 1%. So I do a premium of 1%, and then I add another premium is how risky that business is. And the higher the risk, the higher the number, okay? The lower the risk, the lower the number. So a treasury bond would be zero risk. Actually, it's not zero risk, but very low risk, okay? So I would put 1% here for my discount rate if I was investing in treasury bonds. But this is PayPal. There's risk to it, all right? The general rule of thumb is about 7%, 6-7%, okay? So what that means is at this time right now, we have about a 1% baseline risk premium. And then for companies, you got about maybe a 5% risk premium above that. PayPal is, I would say, a little bit more. They're more established. They're in the game they've been in the game for a long time. Especially as things go more with Venmo, it becomes more digital. I feel like they're pretty safe, but at the same time, there's so many moving parts. We've got the digital economy with Cash App, Venmo, which is owned by PayPal. You've got Facebook entering the game. You've got Google entering the game with paying. You've got even governments entering the game. So there is a bit of risk. So I'm going to give it the 1% plus a 7% risk premium, which gives me a total of 8%. You guys see how I did that? Okay. The EBITDA multiple is pretty basic, pretty simple. EBITDA multiple is the other part of value investing is how many more years out do you think that this company can produce these profits? Okay, so what I did right here, ignore this number. None of these numbers are correct. This was all of AT&T. But basically, this EBITDA multiple is taking the EBITDA right here, which is just a fancy way of saying profits. This is operating profits is all it is, EBITDA. EBITDA stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Is in 2024, I am predicting that this company can make $75 billion in operating income or EBITDA. How many more years after 2024 can this company do that? That's the multiple. That's all it is. It's a simple axe-like precision of saying like, okay, how many more years can we do this? The baseline for a publicly traded company is 8, okay? The more established, the safer, the more entrenched. Think of like Coca-Cola. Think about, I forget the name, Johnson & Johnson. Think about those type of companies that are just super entrenched. McDonald's, right? You can have a very high EBITDA multiple as high as like maybe 12, 15 years, right? Something newer, think of Uber, think of Lyft, think of Lululemon. Those companies, you might not be able to project out that far. You don't know how consistent. You don't know if ride sharing is going to be still around in 15 years if Uber starts giving everybody free rides, right? So, but with PayPal, if we start with a baseline of 8, you're saying so till 2032. Did I do that math right? Yeah, 2032. Could they keep on producing these profits? PayPal, I'm going to give them, I think 7 is actually a good multiple. I'm going to knock them off 1 from the industry, from just the average, because they do live in a pretty highly competitive market, especially in the next 8 years or the next 7 years or 10 years, basically. I think there's going to be a lot of competitors entering that space, whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, competitors to Venmo, whether it's Facebook, Google, or even Apple. Those are some big competitors to play with. So I'm going to put them at 7 for right now, but we'll play with this a little bit later, and I'll show you how we can check our work in a little bit. Okay, all that done. Now we get into the really super fun. I'm joking. It's not super fun, but all I'm going to do is I got to download all this, all these statements. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go to income statement. I export to Excel, and I open it. And you guys can't see this on my other screen, but it's just, I'll show you real fast. It just looks like this. All I'm doing is I'm literally copying it and I'm pasting it into my spreadsheet. I'm just going to open this up real quick so I have more room. And I'm just going to paste it in here. And then I'm going to go back, go to balance sheet, doing the same thing. Open. Copy. Whoops. Paste. Delete that. So depending on each company, you'll see that they have different line items. And so I'm just deleting the line items of the old company. So I'm the last one, statement of cash flows. Well, let me explain this real quick, just for even if you've heard me talk about it before, it's good to hear it again after I get this one done. Delete. Okay. Income statement. How much revenue are you bringing in? How much income are you bringing in? And how much does it cost you? That's all income statement is, right? Don't read the funny words, all that stuff, the verbiage. How much income do you bring in and how much does that cost you, right? I make $5,000 a month and it costs me $4,000 to survive. That's it. That's my income statement. Balance sheet, we talked a little bit about it a little bit. What are your assets and how much debt and liability do you have, right? Okay, I have $1 million in assets. I have my house, I have my computer, I have my car, I have this, and then my liabilities. I have a mortgage, I have my credit card debt, I have my student loan debt, and I have all this stuff, right? And that's all equates to $500,000. So I have $1 million in asset, I have $500 liabilities, right? So a lot of times when they say, what's your asset to liability ratio? It's 2 to 1, $1 million to 500,000. That's all the balance sheet is, okay? And it lists that, it just lists it out. Statement of cash flow is basically how much of your money is flowing through 3 different areas. 1 is operations, 2 is investing, and then 3 is financing. So how much cash are you getting from the operations of the business, right? How much is that generating? We do not care about your debt. We do not care if you're investing in the stock market or you're investing in money market accounts or anything like that. We just care about the operations of the business. Then you go into the investment side, right? Of the money that you're investing, how much are you getting? What are you getting? How much are you paying from investing? You might have losses. And then the financing side, right? The debt. How much debt did you? Oh, you just pulled out a $100,000 loan. Cool. So you got $100,000 in cash, not from operating, not from investing, but you got $100,000 cash because you pulled out a loan from Bank of America. That's it. Okay. Makes sense? Now we go over here and right away we can see that there's some errors in the, why are there errors? Oh, I see. Okay. So right away, my formula, now this is what I'm talking about. I need to go in here and dig in and depreciation. Oh, because it's just zeroed out. Okay, so there's no zero, so I'll just type in 0. My formula needs numbers. If it doesn't have a number, it gets all messed up. So same thing over here. So there's 2 main lines right here. That free cash flow I was talking about. So right off the bat, without me checking a lot of numbers, let's focus right here. Don't ignore this side right now because all these numbers aren't accurate yet. is their free cash flow without debt means unlevered, okay? We're not taking into account their debt yet, is that they have positive free cash flow, which is a good thing. But look at this. They're actually, this is signs of a growth company, right? They have unreliable or unpredictable cash flows. It jumps from 2.3 billion down to 1.8, back up to 2.4, up to 3.8, down to 3 billion. Those are big swings. Those are really big swings. But it's gonna make us hard to predict out the rest of it, but we're gonna give it our best shot. Now, the next thing that we need to figure out is, can they pay their debt? And we know that they don't carry a lot of debt. But let me just double check this to make sure. So let's see, we go over here. They did not pay their interest because they had no interest. Whoops. So that fixed that. Now, so we can see they paid a little bit of interest, because remember when we're going into the balance sheet, we saw that they only had 1 year of debt, and that was 2019. Just last year, they pulled out $5 billion. It was probably for an expansion. So what I would normally do is I would highlight that area, and then I would go into their annual statement of 2019 for this case, or listen to their earnings report, and say they will always explain why they pulled out that debt. And then you're like, oh, yeah, they were expanding, or they bought another company, or they were merging, or whatever. But they're like, oh, we're losing so much money in our operations, we had to pull out debt. That's a bad sign. But I think they were probably building out Venmo, or they bought out Venmo or something. Okay, principal payments. So this is the same thing. I want to take a look at the principal payments. For a company like PayPal, we know that, yeah, so it's right here. And I'll just highlight that. They didn't have a lot of debt, so and then repayment of short-term debt. They have almost no they actually have no short-term debt. They paid it all off 5 years ago. And I'll just highlight that for you guys too, so you guys can see real fast. Now, this is super important that people, a lot of other financial channels don't talk about, is that they're not talking about how much they have to pay for their debt, the principal. This isn't even interest, this is just principal. So if you had a credit card and you're just paying interest, but let's say that you had to pay the principal, the $10,000 in principal, in 2 months, that's a big chunk of change, right? You're not just paying the $100, $200 a month for interest charges. You have to pay that huge $10,000. And that's basically what they had to do here. They had to pay $21 million back in 2016. They had to pay 1.115 billion in 2018, and they had to pay 2.516 billion last year, right? 2019, yes. So, which could lead to, see, now that we just looked at that, and you look at that item, the one right above it. Wait, what's going on here? Do they have more debt? What's going on here? Proceeds. So they must have recently pulled out more debt. See, this is the craziness. Just these 3 lines can tell you a whole different story. So I'm walking through it with you right now because this is all live. I haven't looked at this. So what this tells me is that they pulled out debt and they started paying off the principal in 2018, 2019. Right? So they pulled out almost 2.1 billion. They paid off about half of it. They then pulled out 5.5 billion. They paid off half of it. And then this is, TTM is trailing 12 months is what that stands for. So in the trailing 12 months, so from between May 2020, May 2019, they pulled out a total of $8.5 billion. So they must have done this. So that's a $3 billion difference. And they haven't paid any of it back yet. But we know that they only have $5 billion in debt, right? Let's double check that. So current debt is right here. This is super important, folks. So, yep, they only have, okay. This is where we need to dig and do it. I don't know. Let's see. So you see the discrepancy here? They have $8.5 billion in debt that was issued to them in the last 12 months. But right here, it says they only have $5 billion in debt. But it shows that they haven't paid any of the long-term debt back. Something funny or something isn't recorded there yet. Or possibly it just could be me missing something. But what I'm going to be looking for is between this number. I'll trust this number for right now. They have only $5 billion in debt. But it's good for me to know that they are pulling out debt. And it's really good for me to know that they have more than enough money to pay off their debt. Even if their debt is as high as $8.5 billion, I know that their cash can pay it off. And they have positive cash flow. So I'm not too concerned. And and I'm pretty sure, I'm not positive on this, is that they pulled out that debt to buy Venmo or to expand Venmo or do something like that. Okay. Now I'm just going to go down here and take a look. So even after they paid off the debt and paid their interest charges, they were able to still pay off, or they're still cash flow positive. Does that make sense? Okay. Now I just got to type in their long-term debt. Now this is the part that takes a little bit. Sorry. Or actually, no, they don't have that much. So they only have 2 years. So 2.075. They have no short term. And then this was, what was that? 5 something? $5.471. And then these should all be formulas. Nope, not the growth. So remember the growth rate I was talking to you guys about? Now we're projecting out that growth rate. That's why it's important if we can see like Jen's car wash company, if we could see that it's consistently growing at 20% month over month or 10% year over year or whatnot, we can project that out. But if it's inconsistent all over the place, it's hard to value. But let's take a look at PayPal. So the first in 2016, it grew at 17%, went up to 20%, 18%, and then dropped down to 15%. We do know that they're growing like crazy this right now because of the coronavirus. But it looks like they peaked and they went back down. So for 2020, let's say that they went back up because of this whole coronavirus. Let's say that they grew at like 25%. Okay, let's just throw it out there. Let's say the year after, it's still tough, right? People aren't spending money. And then this is a way for a lot of people to also, I said this in one of my videos, is to get, to receive their stimulus checks. There's another stimulus check. We can see more business with PayPal. Remember, they're not collecting fees on it though. So it's revenue free, but they are getting customers. So let's say that their revenue grows by, let's say 20%, and let's say it starts to taper off. And we'll just say it tapers off at 15% year over year. Still pretty good growth rate, way better than that 3% that we were talking about earlier. And then we go down here, we go into Cogs, right? The cost of goods sold. Let's see how consistent they are. 50, 52, 52, 54, 55. So they've been growing their costs quite a bit. And I don't like the sign of that. That tells me that it's basically becoming more expensive for them to generate revenue. So what I'll do here, instead of that 52.5, I'm going to go up as high as, to be safe, because last year they're at 55 and 0.1. I'm going to do 54.5 here. And then let's go double check SG&A. So SG&A, they're at 16.7. They grew. And then they kind of leveled out right at 17.5, which is perfect. Okay, I already have 17.5 in there, right there. Let's see, depreciation. So they probably have some assets, warehouses, computers, things of that sort. But they zeroed out last year. So they already, everything was already depreciated. And they did buy some CapEx, but they zeroed out. So I don't believe that their depreciation will stay at 0. Let's just put it at 5 the last couple years. Whoops, that needs to be -5. Last couple of years were at 6 and then dropped down to 5 to 0. So we'll just put -5 right now. And then we did working capital. Working capital, we talked about this before. It's like accounts payable, accounts receivable, inventory. Obviously, PayPal, not much inventory unless you call cash inventory, which it can be. They were at 5, 4, 4, +4, -3. Let's just do, I'm going to do -3 here. Oh, Jen, I didn't see your thing. Yeah, checks in the companies, they want to write off their expenses. That makes sense. Okay. Shella, Sahela. Sorry, I don't know. She asks, or he asks, does the COGS need to be negative? They do need to be negative because you're subtracting out. The way that I set up my formula is that I'm basically summing up the two cells. So if you can look at my my formula here, or I'm just adding them together, it just makes it easier. You want it to be negative. And I don't know why this is not negative. Whoops. My bad. Thank you. You caught it. You're right. Yes, it does need to be negative. I thought you were asking me why, but you're correcting my mistake. I appreciate that. There you go. All right. Principal payments. Now we just want to make sure that this is not correct. We want to make sure that they'll be able to service their debt, which we think that they will be able to. So right now we know that they have 5.47 in debt. I'm going to assume that they're not going to take out any more debt because they haven't had a history of taking out a lot of debt, except for, again, I'm making the assumption it was to buy Venmo, unless they purchase another big company or they merge with another company or something like that. It looks like they've been just fine operating without pulling debt. I'm going to make the assumption that they're not going to pull out debt unless something major happens, especially in the next several years, because of, obviously, nobody wants to be over leveraged or anything right now. Sorry, I didn't mean to scratch my arm right into the mic. But let's say that their average interest payments, right? So this is their interest payments right here. They were paying around 2 to 3%. 2 to 3%. Okay. And I'm going to show you guys another. I should show you guys this, huh? I just haven't used it a lot. I'll get logged in real fast just so I can show it to you. If you guys have a computer, you guys should sign up for TD Ameritrade. I probably won't be using it much, but they have this really cool platform called Thinkorswim. And if you use Thinkorswim, you can actually do a lot of really good researching. I'm just logging in right now so you guys can see it. Man, I just got really itchy. I don't know if a bug just bit me or what. All right, so this is a sample account. This is not an actual account. It's kind of like, it's called paper trading. Manuel, you have it? Okay, cool. So I'm going to use it real quick just to show you guys how I dig deeper into these companies. I just started using this, so if I don't find it right away, give me a little bit of a break here, okay? So I think PayPal is PYPL, right? Yep. And then I want to analyze it. Do I want to analyze it? I want to go to fundamentals. Let's show PYPL. Is it going to give it to me? By the numbers, earnings. There, it does. Yes, excellent. Okay. So this is the Thinkorswim platform. It's by TD Ameritrade. It's a really good one, especially if you're going to day trading or options trading, which if you're starting off, I would not recommend it. But what it does give us is it gives us a lot of good numbers, and it gives us analysts reports and such. So if I click on this right here, these are different analyst reports. So let's see if I can. Of course, it's not going to work right now, right? Nope, it did work. Just pull it up over here. So just by clicking on that, it pulled up this report, right? Now, we can't take this report just like how I'm telling you to do something or I'm telling you how I research it. These are the same things. We are not an exact science. So this person may be saying buy. I'm going to have a feeling that I'm not going to be telling you to buy it. And I'm probably not going to give it this high of a price target of 192. I can just kind of tell. I could be wrong. but I'll have to take a look. I haven't finished the calculations yet. But it's a great, it's really cool. I'm not sponsored by them in any way. I don't get any type of affiliate fee. I actually like them because they can give you a lot of data. So if you pull this, you don't have to do it right now, but if you sign up for it, you download the Thinkorswim platform, which is on the TD Ameritrade site. You can go in here and you can get these numbers. And these numbers are really cool because I haven't seen it on any of the other sites yet. And if I go down here, I can see their effective tax rate, right? And their estimated average of their interest rate. So we can forecast that out for future years. So right now, I can see their estimated average interest rate is 2.3 and their tax rate for last year was 18%. So I'm going to bring that back in over here right quick. Let's see, what did my calculations estimate? Interest rates of, okay, so 2.1. Let's see, take a look here. So they estimated interest rates right here of 3.85 and 2.3. I estimated 3.7 and 2.1. Not too bad. I'm in that realm. So let's just use their numbers because there is I'm going to say that there's probably going to be a little bit more accurate. Let's see, they do 2.3. And their interest rate is, mine is calculating at 10.6%. They're saying that their effective tax rate was 17.8. And if you guys look at this right here, you guys can see that their interest rates bounce all over the place, right? Again, that's financial engineering. That's having really good CPAs and tax accountants. That's why I always tell you to work with a tax accountant. Let's go in here and let's override it. We'll do a 17%. All right. So now looking at this, we see that they're going to be cash flow positive. Excellent. They're going to be cash flow positive after paying off their debt or servicing their debt. We don't know if they need to pay principal, but I'm not too concerned about it because even if they pay off slowly that principal, they have more than enough cash flows to pay off that $5.5 billion in debt. Okay. Now we go back up here. Ooh, what is this? $64 a share for PayPal. Okay. So now we look over, let's take a look at some of the other, let me make sure that the numbers are right real quick. I want to make sure that I got the number of, I got the number of shares right. They have 1.17 billion. I've got a discount rate of 8. Multiple of 7. I could see somebody, so now we can play with the multiple. Let's just say somebody gave them like a 10 multiple. That's still 84. That's way below their 145 price. But I'm gonna stick to my guns here of 7 EBITDA. Okay, so I'm gonna save this real quick, and now we start digging deeper. Now we compare our numbers to the other people's numbers, the other analysts. So I'm gonna jump over here. Let's go to my first one, and not all of these people will have valuations, but let's see who does and who doesn't. So you can immediately see that they're trading way above their PE ratio of 91 times. Oh, okay, I'm not that far off. So they're trading at 91 times their PE ratio. Remember, the average for the market is 20. It's 20x right now. So they're trading way above it. Even this one, based off of how many analysts? 37 analysts. They're saying their fair value is around $95. So I bet you if I did 10x here, maybe even 11x, there you go. So what I can assume is that they are using a higher multiple. They're either using a higher multiple or they're using a lower discount rate. So they could be doing a discount rate of like something like 5. There you go. Almost exactly what they got. So I'm assuming that they used the same numbers that I used, which would make sense. It's nothing too crazy. They were going off thinking that PayPal can replicate those numbers, the EBITDA, the operating profits for 10 years. I was assuming 7 years. And they gave them a smaller discount rate. I gave them a 7%. Did I give them 7% or 8%? I gave them 7%. 7% discount rate. They gave them a 5% discount rate. And that gives a different valuation. So remember, we want to find the range. But right now, I can tell you is the range is that this company is very overvalued. They're trading at 145. Okay. Let's go over here to Robinhood. Let's see if Robinhood has a, I think Robin should have one too. Look at that. We're all at 94 bucks. Okay, well, I wasn't. I should change this back to be fair. Right, was that number right? No, I think this was 8. Yeah, I had it at 8. So I'm at $64. Why is this not letting me enter? Does not appear to have any style. This document tree is shown below. Huh. So for some reason, it's not letting me enter. I have this. I'm not sure. I have to look into this, but with Robinhood Gold, it's $5 a month. If you guys don't do a lot of trading, I think you'd be fine with just Simply Wall Street, and then Morningstar for free. If you guys do have $5 a month, I think it's actually pretty helpful to actually read these full reports from these companies if you are interested. I wouldn't do it though. If you're just you're still learning, use the other free sites unless you have $5 to burn. But you can see that the fair value that this report gave is $94. They're at $95. I'm at $64. I understand and I can completely agree and see where they're coming up with a 5% discount rate and a 10 times X. That's value investing, okay? That's all it is you want to understand, you want to first give your own value. So for me, right, let's say that I dig deeper into the company and I am completely stuck on 7 times EBITDA, 8% discount rate. Because I dug in, I understand, I'm like, I don't really like their leadership team. I don't like their growth strategy. They're giving away a bunch of free stuff right now and it's not real recognized revenue, whatever. I know that the range is between $65 to $95. They're currently trading at $145, and TD Ameritrade, their analysts are saying, where was it? I just had it up. Or the street, I'm sorry, not TD Ameritrade. Let's see these other companies. Let's see if they gave them a different valuation. They're giving 150. Sorry guys, I'm just scrolling through this because a lot of times you can see like how they got to their valuation. Okay, so look. Right here. They actually did. Okay. Look at this. So we're all in the same ballpark. They're at 102. 101 80. So they're saying that they're overvalued too. Okay? So we're all roughly in the same ballpark. I'm probably a little bit more bearish just because I haven't dug into the company itself. So I gave them a little bit worse variables. So does that make sense to everybody, how I did that and what I'm doing? I get it that you're not going to understand how to do all of this yet, and you're still trying to probably learn how to do the income statement, balance sheet. That's a great way to start. But I want you to see like how I analyze companies. And so I'll put PayPal up there. And so in the next stock crash, let's just take a look at PayPal real fast here. If they crashed hard, let's see, they crashed in March. They got down to $85, $86. If I could go back in time and do it all over again, and I had this valuation, I would have purchased some PayPal. I wouldn't put a lot of my money in there because I did value it at $65, again, without digging deeper into the annual reports or anything. But let's say that I did come to a valuation. I played around with the valuations a little bit. I liked them. Their outlook was looking a little bit better. I gave them 8.5, and then I gave a 7% discount rate. Now, let's say I give them 6%, 6.5. So now I'm at $79. If I can get in, where'd that go? If I can get in at $85, yeah, I'll buy some shares of PayPal. It's right around fair value, and I know that it can go up, and then it'll go up. And then once it gets up here, strictly me, so overvalued, inflated market, being boosted up by huge stimulus money, I'd probably sell, okay? And I'd take my money out and I'd wait. And I'd go find some other companies that are undervalued or trading around fair value, and I'd buy into those. That's how value investing works. And you do this over the long run. You can do it in the short term, obviously. If you buy PayPal, and let's say that in the next 2 months it shoots up to over 300 and you got in at 90, I don't see how PayPal's cash flows and its cash balance and the debt that it has, it doesn't justify a $300 valuation or $200 valuation. And so it can help determine whether you should sell the company or hold on to it. Does that make sense? That's basically everything that I just did for PayPal is what all value investors do. They just do it on a different scale. Warren Buffett goes way more in detail. He goes and interviews the CEO. He reads through all the financial reports, and then he invests billions of dollars and actually buys up a big enough chunk to actually own a big part of the company, like 10, 15, 20, 30, 40% of the company. That's how Warren Buffett does it. But when you boil it down, essentially, he's doing the exact same thing that I'm doing. He's just way more successful and has a lot more money. Okay? All right. Goodness gracious, how long? 2 hours exactly on the dot. What questions do we have with the 11 of you that are still here? Do you guys have any questions, specific questions for me as I clean up my desktop here? But that's pretty much all I have for you folks for today. I appreciate you guys jumping in. And just as a recap, we went over a lot of different stuff, but PayPal right now I'd say is overvalued, and I wouldn't buy into it right now. It's getting a lot of hype because a lot of people are using it, but we always come down to cash flows. Does cash flow support it? And so if I would not buy into it right now, especially with the market happening. For you, that the 12 of you that are still in here, man, I care a lot for you guys, and you guys are awesome, both on my Instagram, on the comments and the messages I get through YouTube and through other social media platforms. Discord, I'm super active in Discord anymore, but I do get a lot of messages from there from time to time. You guys are really, really great, and you guys are asking guys and gals are asking brilliant questions, and a lot of you guys come from different backgrounds. I know one of our viewers has like three successful restaurants. They're all shut down right now. We have Jen, who has a car wash. We have other individuals who own multiple rental properties, all asking questions, or people who've been investing for a long time. The key thing right now is focus on your personal balance sheet. That's the biggest thing I can tell you. Get your personal balance sheet strong, and then start looking for opportunities. Right now, this is what I mean by looking for opportunities. I am actively looking for opportunities right now. I know that PayPal is so overvalued, but I know if it drops back down under the $100 mark, I'm gonna start looking into it. I have the cash lined up right now to buy into it once it drops down. I have that for all of these companies down here. If you guys can see all these companies I've valued, I've done it for all of them, and I've color-coded them based on when and how I want to enter them, okay? The purple, they have to drop by basically get cut in half for me to be interested in. The ones in green are basically right there. They're floating really close to their fair valuation, and they drop down just a little, I'm going in. Yellow means, our gold is they're ready. I'm ready to go in. I'm just waiting for the next dip, okay? And then what do I have over here? I have red. Do not invest. I don't understand the business. It's so stupidly overvalued, or it's about to go bankrupt. Stay away. Gray is, these could be great companies. I have no idea about how that industry works. I don't even know. I can't even basically understand what's happening within the company because I have no business in it. JP Morgan, Qualcomm, they look like great companies. They look like strong companies. I have no understanding of it. So I have a little bit of a speculative funding that I might throw into it. And for the last 12 that you guys are still here, I'll show you guys real quick something that I'm playing around with. So I'm learning more about options. Just don't even pay attention to this. This is how I start learning, okay? This is my process. I start playing around with numbers. I create formulas to see if I put this much money in, how much money can I get out, right? But I want to show you guys this down here and highlight this area where I'm looking at how to split up my money. So I have my Robinhood account. Right now I only have $25,000 in my Robinhood account, but I'm looking at putting in another 25 from my other account. So I'll have a total of 55,000 in my Robinhood account. And I want to split up Robinhood differently. And if you guys don't know, my main background is not stock investing. My main background, a lot of my money and my liquid assets is tied up in properties, homes and properties. And this is how I want to divvy up the amount of money or cash that I feel comfortable putting into the stock market. So right now it's 55,000. I might eke that up to 100,000. Let's do 100 just so it's a nice round number. If the stock market tanks really hard, I'll increase it to 100,000. But basically how I'm breaking it up, this is not what I'm recommending to you. This is not a recommendation. This is just me sharing for entertainment value what I'm going to do, okay? ETFs is going to make up 25% of my portfolio. Value stocks, which is basically like Microsoft, Boeing, Intel, AT&T, Disney, Home Depot. Those are value strong companies with long histories and cash flows that I can project out easily. I'm gonna make up 55%. Okay, these usually have dividends. I can project them out. They're pretty stable. And then I have growth stocks. These are like the Chipotles, the Nvidias, what's the other one that I was just looking at? Not Nike. Planet Fitness is another one I'm looking at, right? PayPal would even fall in this. And then speculative is just crazy out there, throwing my money down on Tesla, hoping Tesla or Uber takes off, right? And then my gamble are my options. When I bet on the market, if I'm like right now, it's like, I know that I think the market's gonna go down. I know that everything that all the data that I have, the market's going to go down. But if the government puts out another $3 trillion, the market's going up. It just has to go up. That's with that much money, that devaluation of the dollar, the market's going to go up. I'm going to gamble that the market's going to go up in the short term. That's $5,000. I'll gamble that. Okay. And then over here are just the ticker symbols that I'm interested in when I play these positions. That's all. So I haven't bought into them yet. I'm not saying these are the end all of the right ones to buy into, but these are the ones that I'm looking into. I'll tell you this. These ETFs, that's just tracing the market. I'll invest in those all day long whenever there's a good price. Right now, I don't think there's a good price. And that's it, folks. That's all I got. Questions for me. I want to do this on Snapchat. What do you mean, Manuel? You want to do what on Snapchat? You want to do stock trading on Snapchat? I don't understand how that's even... I'm so old for Snapchat, guys. I don't even know. Snook. So I just got here Webull or M1. Which one would you... You know, Webull, I like the what do you call it? The way that it can analyze stuff. On Webull, I actually have used Webull in the past to do a lot of stock analysis because you can actually read the financial statements in the app. I can't read it in Robinhood. I don't know if M1. I've used M1 a little bit, but I wasn't super a big fan of it. Probably didn't give it a good enough chance. But between those two, I'd say Webull. Robinhood and SoFi are my two favorite ones right now. I'll probably start. I'm trying to decide between Thinkorswim and Robinhood for the majority of my holdings. I think I might go over to Thinkorswim just because it's tied to TD Ameritrade, and I'm a long-term player, so I'll sit in there for a while. Robinhood's still just new enough where it makes me a little bit nervous, but yeah. Let's see. Okay. Yep, Market Digest. Robinhood Gold does allow you to read it. Oh, does it? Actually in the app? I have Robinhood Gold right now. I don't know. If you know how to read it in Robinhood Gold, let me know. I see they have the earnings statements. History, it has news. I don't see it. So if you know how to read financials in Robinhood Gold, please let me know because I don't see it. It has a couple of main stats, but no financials. So if you do. Let's see. Manual. I want to look at the balance sheet, see how they're doing. Snapchat. I got you. I'm sorry. I'm so slow. I thought you meant that you wanted to do this over Snapchat. I'm just like, how would you do this on Snapchat? Okay. Snapchat would be considered a growth company. They're actually even below a growth. I don't want to say below growth. They'd be like speculative. Let's pull up Snapchat super fast, okay? Just because you brought it up. Whoops. Is it Snap? Is this it? Can't really. Yep, Snapchat. So their stock is, yeah, they were just released in 2017. And then we look at Snap. Now we can't, it's going to be tough to do this because I bet you see this right here? Boom, boom, boom. It's negative cash flow. It's a growth company. So growth companies, all it is forego cash today for growth. Growth today for cash tomorrow. And as a value investor, you can't value that. And so I can't value negative cash flows. To me, you shouldn't even be in business because you are not making money, which obviously is not true because there's tons of companies that make a lot of money. But for every company that there's like a Tesla or a Netflix who are still not profitable or consistently profitable, there's companies similar to Snapchat or Groupon or Uber or Lyft who fizzle out and they die. Twitter is another very good example. It's like, so you just got to be careful. And so that's why this would be something that I would put, if I really believed in it, I would put this into my, going back over here, this would be in my speculative. So if I had $5,000, I might buy, maybe like 100 shares of Snapchat if I really believed in it. But I don't know without digging in. Let me real quick look. They have cash, okay? They got enough cash to cover their debt. Let's take a look at the revenue. Revenue looks like it's been growing. Let's see, their operating income has been decreasing. That's good. Net income has been increasing with revenue. All right. So that's not bad. The next thing I would want to look at is what they're forecasting. When do they think they will become profitable? And what are they doing to compete with like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and then who their customers are? Because their customers are going to lean towards, I'm assuming pretty young. I mean, I'm 35, 35, and nobody in my group uses TikTok or Snapchat. But I do know that there's people who are in their 20s that still use it. Snook, thank you, or do you have another preference? Preference for what, Snook? Oh, sorry, Snook, yeah. Snook, I like look into Thinkorswim. That has awesome analytics. And then I use, what do you call it? SoFi to buy chunks of stocks because I can buy like literally if I just want to get into a stock real fast and I don't want to pay like $1,000 for it, I can buy $20, $50, $100 of a stock. So I use that for SoFi to do my partial purchases. But right now I'm playing mostly with Robinhood. Be completely transparent with all of you out there. I honestly only own a few options right now. I'm not into any of the stocks. They're either, sorry, somebody's like revving them Harley right outside my house. I don't own any stocks. Everything that I like is so overvalued, and I really believe that the next market or the next 6 months we're going to see a huge drop off in stocks, and I don't want to play in it. But it's not because I know it's going to happen. It's just too volatile for me right now. We don't know what the government's doing. So with that said, I have 25,000 over 25,000 in Robinhood right now. I have another 75,000 in another account. I have $25,000 in another account. They're all floating all around, but I basically cashed out of everything. But I'm ready to put it back in. So, yeah. Answer your question. I'm sorry. Thinkorswim, which is TD Ameritrade, Robinhood Gold, I really like, and then SoFi for chunks of stocks, buying portions of stocks. I love these questions. Keep them coming. Let's see. Manuel, I hope that was helpful with Snapchat. You're welcome, Shella Monza. Snook, I do these live feeds every Sunday. I just started it. Like, what is it? The second or third one, you guys? I think it's my third. Today's my third one. I'm totally playing around with it, so I'm gonna keep it up if you guys like it. I don't know what to talk about. I think the valuation of stocks right now is pretty handy and giving you guys updates. So if you guys like it, I'll keep doing it. Manuel, is it a zombie company? I wouldn't say it's exactly a zombie company. It's not quite dead yet because their revenues are growing. They're not growing as fast as I would like. It looks like they're growing at about 25. They're growing pretty quick. They're growing at 25, 30%. But really a company like this that's in the growth stage, you want to see huge jumps you want to see jumps of like 50, 75, 100%, 200%, right? I don't think we can go back far enough. Let me just see. Let me take a look at Lyft real fast. Whoops. If I take a look at Lyft, let's see. Yeah, you see how Lyft is growing right here, Manuel? Actually, everybody can learn from this. Is you see how from 2017 to 2018, it had over 100% growth. It doubled. And then from 2018 to 2019, it almost doubled. So that's a fast growth company. You want to see huge jumps in growth. If you're not going to give me profitability, if you're not going to give me earnings, and I'm investing in you, you're just losing my money, give me heavy, high growth. And so I wouldn't say Snapchat is a zombie company, but it's definitely underperforming in terms of a growth company. I do like that it has more cash than it does debt. That's good. Looks like, Lyft is doing a good thing here too. It's got $3 billion in cash, only half a billion in debt. But same thing here. Same song and dance. Negative cash flows. No value investor likes that. So I'd throw this into speculative as well. Okay. Market Digest. I may be wrong. I don't have gold, but I assumed if they gave you access to Morningstar, it would at least have a link or something to the quarterly reports. Yeah, Morningstar, I think, Market Digest, you're right. With the gold, it gives you the access to the Morningstar reports. And then I just go to Morningstar and I pull up all the information. Market Digest asks, what are your favorite financial ratios to use? Honestly, I don't use a ton of financial ratios. I don't like them. I like to understand the story. And so a lot of times what folks do that are trying to understand the ratios, I don't even know what the ratios tell you the truth, because the ratios are trying to show you what I just showed you, right? It's a more condensed version. So if somebody says like, oh yeah, their capital to equity ratio or their cash to debt ratio is X number, I get what they're trying to say, but I'd rather know like, hey, they have $50 billion in cash and they have $25 billion in debt. That tells me more than if you just say they have a 2 ratio, right? Does that make sense? But to answer your question, I do look at price to earnings. Right? Price to earnings tells me how the market is valuing them. And sometimes I do look at price to cash flow ratio. But other than that, I like to dig into the financials a lot more than just looking at like these numbers here. I don't think they tell you much. If anything, ratios that I really like to look at, Market Digest, right? That was what you asked, is I like to look at the ratio of their gross profits to their revenues. And then I like to look at their expenses to the revenue. So revenue is the denominator. And then I put like their Cogs, or I put their SG&A, or I put their gross profits. And I look at that. And then I see how that changes over time. But yeah, I don't think it's fair to compare like a Lyft to even like an Uber when it comes to this. I mean, you can. But after you compare it to Uber, how do you compare this to Snapchat or Facebook, right? It's kind of hard because they are such different industries. Okay. Always learning. What are your thoughts on UPS? Their PE seems reasonable currently. Let's take a look at UPS. For those that don't know, my dad actually worked at UPS for like 50 years. Probably not 50 years, like 40. He's just retired. Let's see. Now UPS is it's granted. Remember, I grew up with UPS. It was brown everything. Okay, and I even did like the whole take your son to work day thing when I was younger. One thing I don't like about UPS is it's so old school, and it's like the typical. I don't know about now. I haven't been following now. To be fair to them, I don't know. But from when my dad was working there, it was very much white male 1970s feeling, right? Brown everything. You wear a certain type of clothes. You had to wear a collar, white collar, button-up shirt, slacks, and everybody was in cubicles, and it just felt like the 1970s whenever I was in the office. And they lacked a lot of forward leadership company movement, and so that's why I never really liked them. I felt like they were at the top of the game, and they only had to lose, and they were so stuck in their ways. They allowed DHL, FedEx, USPS, and then now all of these like what do you call them? People who are delivering for Amazon. Gosh, why can't I think of it? Right, the delivery drivers for Amazon to basically steal a portion of their pie, and now they're still big. Don't get me wrong, but they're not as big as they could be. I remember when I was a kid, I feel like they were trading around very much the same value between 70 and 90 bucks. But let's take a look at this real quick. I just want to see their chart real fast to see how they're. I haven't looked at this in years, but let's take a look. Yeah, totally. So like basically my assumption basically was around. They're basically trading sideways. So during the biggest boom and expansion period of recent history, if not in the history of the stock market, between 2009 and 2019, those 10 years was probably the biggest expansion. And look at UPS. They basically grew from 42 to 100, 110 in 2015. So the biggest expansion, they basically went from rock bottom to the top. They doubled their stock price, and then they traded sideways during probably one of the best times of the last 100 years. Trading sideways when the market is doing really, really well is not a good sign. So, they're trading at 90 bucks right now. They're trading at 90 bucks back in 2016. Their peak was 130. That's not too bad, but I mean, like, it was very short-lived. They didn't stay up there that long. There's a ton of resistance. Like, what was that? The next month, they dropped down to 104. Let's take a look at their balance sheet real fast. I'm glad you guys are asking about financials and not just looking at prices. I'm the dum-dum that's just going straight to the prices. Okay. The PE ratio is 18. So real quick, remember that discount rate I was telling you about? We can see what the market is doing to the discount rate. I can tell you it's right around probably 5%. So all you do is you do the inverse. So I do 1 divided by 18.42. I should probably do this in Excel so you guys can see it. So yeah, the market is giving it a discount rate of 5.5%. So you do equals 1 divided by 18.52. And that gives us, probably messed up a number there. Right there. 5.4% is this number. You guys remember this number right here? The discount rate I was telling you about? The market is giving it 5.4% right now for UPS. So we look at UPS. Let me just take a look at their cash and stuff real fast. Cash, they've got about $9.5 billion. They got quite a bit of debt, right? So they have 32 billion. They can't cover nearly, a third of it. They can cover just about a third of it. I do not like seeing this. I do not like that at all. Do you see how this is a well-established company? Let's just dig in. I don't want to dig in deeper to this right now. But like they had negative $4 billion unless they purchased something. They've lost a lot of money the last couple of years investing in something. And they lost a lot of money, I'm assuming, paying off debt. So between this, it doesn't produce very good free cash flows right here. Their operating is okay, but do you see how it's really kind of, it jumps up and down a lot? Let's look at the revenues. Revenues are growing at a steady-ish rate. That's not too bad. Operating income, let's see. Okay, you see this? So revenue is growing. Why did it dip right here? The operating income. Operating income, that's SG&A. I don't think that shouldn't include CapEx or expenditures. It goes back up, but look at this difference. So here, 66 billion, and then they made 74 billion in 2019. But there's only a very small difference between their actual profitability. You see that? So there was about, what is that? Almost a $9 billion difference, $8 billion difference in revenue. But there's only a very marginal $270 billion difference in profitability. From where I am, I would say I am a no-go on this, especially with Amazon. We also know that Amazon's basically buying up planes and starting to do its own delivery thing, which would really kind of bite into UPS. But UPS is very well established. What's their dividend? Do they have a good dividend? They have a 4.4. That's actually pretty good. I probably would not buy them right now. Just a really quick thing, just for you guys real quick. Let's see if we can look up. I just want to see what they're getting valued at. Okay, so they're being valued at 107 right now without me looking at the numbers. Yeah, not bad. Let me see what FedEx is being valued at. 151s for FedEx. FedEx is currently trading at 107. Yeah, the whole delivery and shipping industry, I don't know a lot about. For my entire life, my dad grew up, or I grew up with UPS. I should know more. But with Amazon entering the game, I don't know. I should look into it though. If it's really, if they really think that that's far undervalued, they're saying that this is almost 30% undervalued. So it could be a good deal. Look into it. You should research it and then let me know, and then I'll talk about it. All right, Snookaroo, you're absolutely welcome. Manuel. Yeah, Snook, I will be here at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time next Sunday. Manuel, you're right. Lyft does have more momentum, especially with this coronavirus lifting up. They should do better. They should do a lot better. Remember, Elon Musk is somebody that I would not bet against, and he is looking at getting rid of Lyft and Uber with his whole Tesla car service thing.